today. It's just Paul and Heather. If you want to see Beige, go visit the game journalism part of your local museum.
Quick turnaround. So I guess a quick turnaround would be the Beach Drop Museum, not really the
That's true. That's true.
the game journalist part.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we talk about video game news and also about the episode of Checkpoint that went up this week, and also about whatever else we want to talk about.
That beach here, it's harder to like derail you at the very beginning.
Yeah, Beige is away at the moment, but he has, as far as I know, he has not been mummified in preparation for a museum exhibit as of yet.
I mean, I haven't seen him in several hours, so I cannot confirm whatever is going on.
Yeah. Possible that he is currently being measured for animatronics.
Oh, I could see him volunteering for that.
All right, let's talk about all the video game news that we want to talk about.
All right, what was the first thing?
So the first thing is actually a bunch of things, because Final Fantasy 16 has kicked off its big sort of marketing push, I guess.
Well, and there was a big interview with a couple of people.
Yeah, this last weekend,
as well.
And like a bunch of journalists got to actually play for like a couple hours.
Oh, we're in that part of the.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. It was
a
real, and it was clearly like a whatever press junket, or because all of my feeds from different video game blogs had different stories about, and it is that thing, of course these places are always, they got to get the content, they got to get the views and the articles, right? And so they'll be, rather than like, we got to see the Final Fantasy 16 preview, here's all the cool stuff about it. It's actually like 5 different articles. It's like this one aspect of it, here's another aspect of it, here's another aspect.
You can really tell which blogs need to have like as much content going as they need to, because it'll be like one interview and then 5 separate articles about the different things, so they can have the different headlines to try to get people to click
different things that are said in the interview. Yeah.
Whereas other sites might actually only do one more comprehensive thing. It's a rough world out there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Lots of interesting stuff coming out about it. For one thing, it's going to be it seems to be a real-time fighting kind of game. Like it's they had a whole lot of stuff talking about how it's not going to be turn-based and why it's not turn-based and this kind of stuff.
That's what they went with for Final Fantasy VII's remake, right? Like they stopped doing turn-based.
They seem to be going away from that, yeah.
So I don't find a non-turn-based Final Fantasy 16
I guess it's not
weird.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's more that when they sort of talked a little bit about, and you can check out the articles to go see more about it, but they talked a little bit about why, basically how they're saying that like there won't be one, like they're not going to do that again.
It's important for them to talk about, because it has had turn-based in the past. I'm a little sad, but I mean, I don't play Final Fantasy, so it doesn't really bother me. But
there's an interesting aspect where they talked about not wanting to be kind of pigeonholed into sort of JRPG as like a genre or whatever, and saying that that's kind of, it feels sort of especially in North America, kind of reductive, or in that, or that people either like or don't like JRPGs, and they want to make this as accessible as possible to everybody. Which is funny because like Final Fantasy is like the quintessential JRPG. Like
So-
it's literally basically
okay.
like the definition. The original Final
What-
Fantasy series would be like a definition of what a JRPG.
What is a JRPG to you?
I mean,
Like when someone says, "Hey, this game is a JRPG," what are the things that pop into your brain that categorizes this game as being?
to like Final Fantasy, like turn-based combat,
Turn-based combat, really long,
long, very
like,
long
very
story,
long, right? a
story-based,
lot of story.
big party of characters.
Yeah, lots of characters. Probably characters with silly names because it's Square Enix.
And a certain anime aesthetic, although that's not
At this
necessarily
point, kind of
yeah.
an anime aesthetic, but not necessarily true of that.
Uh,
But like that's the thing to me when someone says, "Oh, this is a JRPG," and there are people who love JRPGs and there are
Right.
people who do not. But why do people do not like JRPGs? Within our age group, it's because none of us have time.
that's true. Which
It has
I
nothing to do with the mechanics
yeah.
or the story.
and I would suspect that this is not going to change that aspect of the Final Fantasy series, the time investment.
Yeah, I highly doubt they're making a Final Fantasy 16 game and they're like, don't worry, this one's a brief 12 hours.
yeah, a quick little Final Fantasy game.
Could
So
you imagine?
But it is interesting though that the way that JRPG is really more of it's like a genre as opposed to referring specifically to like of course there are lots of RPGs from Japan that don't fit into the JRPG mold.
It's true.
And there are lots of RPGs from North America and other countries that are effectively like it's sort of one of those weird video game categories that is not that accurate but useful for discussion purposes.
Yeah, I just don't like. I can get what they're going for, where they're like, oh, we want more people to like be interested in this and whatever, and I'm like, sure. But I don't know that being like, oh, our Final Fantasy game, we won't label it as a JRPG. We'll label it as an action game or whatever. We'll change that.
I mean, of course, there's also the thing where, like, depending on your age and your video game playing habits, like if somebody primarily got into Final Fantasy from Final Fantasy 14, which I imagine many people have, the online one, the MMO, then it becoming turn-based would be kind of like a weird, like, oh, this isn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like what's normal depends on what you're used to, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I just find video game genres kind of a weird typing to begin with.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely because they're almost all mechanic based in terms of what they try to tell you with that grouping, and that's useful to the sense of like, I don't really like bullet hells, so finding out something's a bullet hell is not a thing I want to necessarily bother spending time in.
I mean, that's one of the interesting things that video games have or games have that other, books and movies and things don't have the kind sort of skill-based grouping, I mean, I guess there's like
Kind of
like
they
no,
have a
no like
rating system.
nobody rates movies on how complicated the movie is. It's more on like the content.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's certain
Yeah.
movies that I'm like, this was clearly outside. I should have done this on easy mode rather than hard mode. I have no idea what I'm doing.
I mean, that wouldn't be so bad. I just wish that when people are like, "Oh, this is a JRPG," they would tell me if it has more of a leaning towards romance or something to do with the plot.
I mean, I talk about this a fair amount, but I find this kind of categorization thing interesting because it's something that we as humans do for everything. We like putting things in boxes and categorizing stuff. But
I like being in a box.
And-
I might secretly be a cat though, so
and those categories, but obviously in the real world, things don't necessarily neatly fit into various configurations, and there's lots of gray areas and gradients between the sections. But that doesn't mean that they are completely useless as
No,
categories.
absolutely.
Which is one of these things where it's like this idea that, that just because a category isn't absolute and definitive doesn't mean that it isn't useful as sort of at least a starting point.
Yeah. I need some subcategories.
Exactly.
Telling me something is a visual novel.
I mean, it's like it's a fractal.
It's a start.
It's a fractal. It's like with music genres or whatever, right? It goes as deep as you want in terms of different subgenres and different sub things.
What else was there about Final Fantasy 16? Do we even know what Final Fantasy 16 is about? Like you and me personally, because I don't.
But a guy called Clive.
Durgans and things. And yeah, Clive.
Clive I don't know if they've talked about what the actual story of it will be yet. Clive seems to be the prince of someplace.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting because usually, often the protagonists of Final Fantasy games will be outcasts and stuff, or possibly escaped or monarchs who are escaping from their thing. That's been had a couple times.
I only played 10, which had a blitzball player who I think his dad was Sin, maybe, and then had a summoner in it who could do some cool stuff. I didn't play all the way through it. And I played 10 too, and those 3 girls were in a pop band or something, maybe. Again, didn't play all of it. And then I played Chocobo Fables, which just made me a cute chocobo. So my measure of what happens in a Final Fantasy game is very narrow.
Yeah, that's fair.
And oddly doesn't include princes.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Unless the chocobo is a prince. I don't remember that being a thing.
It's possible there's more info about this has been sussed out, but I didn't see anything in particular. But of course, one of the things about, talking about sort of wanting this game to be as popular as possible. I mean, they mentioned multiple times this idea that when you're making this, however, $100 million, $150 million game, you gotta be a little, you gotta cast a wide net.
They expect you to make all that money back plus more because they'd like to keep money as well.
Yeah.
They don't really want you to break even on these things. So, yeah, if you're going to spend that much money making a game, they probably want you to sell a lot of it.
So they talked on ChillPoint about the accessibility, which is something we talk about on ChillPoint a reasonable amount because it's something it's
a fairly hot topic within a lot of at least the video game spaces I hang out in.
I think it's a topic, and it's a topic that I feel like has sort of risen to larger prominence in the last couple of years, which is great, and it's something that I think is important. So I tend to mark stories that have cool accessibility stuff in it. And so one of the aspect of this, so it starts with talking about how wanting to sort of not play the game on easy mode, but still having trouble because Naoki Yoshida is 50.
Yeah, well,
and
I mean, you get older,
your
reaction
reflexes
times
slow
start
down a
to
little
slow
bit.
down. Again, time becomes an issue for some of us because we don't have that much time to do hobbies or work, I guess.
That would be an interesting accessibility feature, just a bunch of the stuff is cut out so it's a lot shorter game.
I know people who will look at
10-hour accessibility
in
mode.
In the same way that some people will look at a game's playtime and be like, I want to have a lot of playtime for the amount of money I'm going to spend.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's a budgeting concern, and maybe you can't buy a lot of things. I think that's fair. In the same way that people do that, I do know people who are like, this game is 10 hours. Great, sign me up.
Yeah,
I can get through a game in a month then, you know.
But yeah, Reader's Digest mode. I mean, I guess that's just don't do any side quests. But
yeah, I mean,
no
the things we made fun of were gamer pride.
Yeah, this
which,
idea that like rather than that you have to say like story mode versus action mode,
Yeah.
as opposed to easy hard or
and, I
easy
mean,
medium or whatever.
if you want to have some gamer pride, cool. Don't force it on the rest of us.
And then so they had this idea, which is actually quite a neat idea, of having these different ring accessories that your character gets that can do things sort of mechanically in the game to make things easier, such as make combos easier to pull off, like with one button, or make it so that you can dodge automatically rather than having to do like a quick time thing, or like rather than hitting a button at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That your doggy, whose name is Torgal, who's adorable. He's a big fluffy.
I mean,
he's
it's
like
a dog.
he's like
It better be adorable.
He's like a big like fluffy. I don't know what kind of a dog, but he's cute and awesome.
It's a Final Fantasy dog. It does not have a breed we can align to.
And
I'm
he
sure.
can. Petting the dog is definitely in the game. That has been confirmed by various journalists who have played the game.
Very important.
But normally you have to give the dog like commands for what to do. But if you get this ring, it can do it. It does stuff automatically. So stuff like that. Now the interesting thing about it is that they're still accessories, so that they take your accessory slot apparently.
Yeah. So you have something like 3 accessory slots total. I thought. I can't remember.
You can have one ring on each finger and then a third ring somewhere
on your nose. Now you only have like so many accessory slots though, and there are only 5 accessibility style rings. But even if you have all of those rings, you can only put 2 of them on.
Right.
So a lot of people will point out that Nier Automata did a similar thing
right.
to this.
There's
where
little
they
chips
had,
that you put in.
Yeah, it's very thematic of that game, where because you're a robot, so you have like all these chips you can turn on and off. Now the reason why that's kind of different though is it's way less restrictive. Because you can just turn them all on if you want, and I'm for the idea of like, let's have things we can turn on and off during gameplay, because that is a thing of maybe I don't want to do that right now, or maybe I do, or maybe I want to turn it off and try it out.
But having them sort of a thing like kind of within the mechanics of the game rather than like just a menu option seems like
a menu
odd
option is easier for people to find.
Yeah,
I think than necessarily having. Because I mean, I don't know how it's laid out. If they're categorized, then maybe it'll be not a hard thing to find. But it is kind of like, if I have to look through a whole list of rings and all of them do different things,
right?
And I'm just trying to find a thing so I can make something easier for me to play.
And
it just does seem a little.
Yeah, I'll be curious.
Like you're making it harder.
I'd be curious to see what the messaging around it is in the game, like whether they're sort of presented as just like things that you have, or whether they're specifically sort of presented as accessibility options.
Yeah, because I don't know if they're going to be actually presented as accessibility options, just so much as options.
Like I can imagine somebody just having them on in the game and not really realizing that they are playing in a more sort of accessible mode. Somebody who might actually enjoy the difficulty or the more mechanically complicated stuff, but not quite realizing that they're wearing this ring that's making it so that they don't have to do that, or that's not like a it's a part of the game, but it's not actually like how the original sort of game was set up. It's a sort of an additional accessibility thing they've turned on,
Yeah.
which is kind of an interesting idea.
So let me give you an example of not an accessibility thing necessarily, but of an option. Pokemon Sword and Shield, pretty sure it was in this one. You did not get you got sound settings when somebody in town gives you a pair of earbuds.
But before that, you can't.
You can't access them. Also, it's in the first town you get to, so you don't get them for a while. Also, it's an NPC that you don't have to talk to, so you can completely miss it. So,
That's so weird.
Cool idea, right? What if somebody gave you a pair of earbuds at some point and that unlocked your sound settings? On paper, sounds really neat. But this means you've played how much of the game
Yeah.
without that being an option?
Because, like, Pokemon does the thing with the, like, here's your Pokedex or whatever with all your stuff in it,
Yeah.
which is like the menu system, which is cool. But they give you that, like, before you start the game, like in the opening
It's
cutscene.
basically in the first.
Yeah. So you
beginning
you
of
don't
the
have to
thing,
go
right?
through the game, like, without that
Yeah,
actual
and I've
UI.
definitely heard people talk about things like, oh, well, what if as your character's like leaving the house, your mom's like, oh, don't forget your earbuds, or you grab them because you're like doing whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can still have these things in universe. And so when I look at like Final Fantasy 16, I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of see this as we want to do an in-universe thing like Nier Automata is doing with their thing, but also restricted so heavily. And when you have this was the dev,
Yeah.
what's his face, saying things like, "Oh well, I have gamer pride, and I don't want people to do things."
And if you could have
Without
if you had all
and
5,
then
it's
there's no
way too
point.
easy. And it's like,
you know, and I hear people who will say things like, "Well, what's the point of playing a video game if you're just going to basically watch a movie?" And I'm like, "Well, it is a very overpriced movie then, but if that's what I want to do, who cares?"
yeah,
You know,
like,
we
why
literally have
why-
those anthology horror games which you can just watch as a movie.
the Kingdom Hearts games as come with like a movies of the previous Kingdom Hearts games on the discs.
Yeah, like in the end, I'm just like, if it doesn't really affect you, who cares?
Right. It's just it seems like an odd sort of like halfway measure, but it's still an interesting way of doing it, and yeah, hopefully it will be used. When Graham first wrote this story, we thought that it was like a ring gives you like a dog that helps you out, like it does moves and attacks and stuff and helps you. And then we had to go back and look at the actual article, and it's like, no, the dog is always there. The ring just makes it so the dog goes automatically. Because I was like, if they made a game where you don't normally have a big fluffy dog that helps you, but there's like an accessibility setting that it's like add a dog to this game. Why would anybody turn that off? Also, that's a setting that should be in every game.
Well, I mean, in the after show, they brought up
Even if it doesn't help
they
you, it's just
brought
like
up,
add a dog to this game.
yeah. And in the after show portion, they brought up Funky Kong, right? And in what is that? It's Tropical Freeze. They added Funky Kong into the re-release for the Switch, and Funky Kong is just a character that doesn't take any damage whatsoever.
Oh,
And I'm like, that's a neat idea. I don't know if I like that stuff tied to a specific character as opposed to like a toggle or something, because that does mean that if you want to play as that character, but you do want the other difficulty mode, you can't have that. Right? It's like having outfits that are tied to stuff and not being able to have like glamour so that you can look like a different thing, which I can understand in like an online context because that gives
Yeah.
off information. But if it's a solo game, it's like, I want to be able to dress really cool, but also maybe have these other abilities.
right. Yeah,
There's all sorts of ways you can do things,
yeah.
and we all have our preferences.
I liked the Immortal Phoenix Rising game that I was playing. You know, as it's an Ubisoft game, so it has tons and tons of different equipment and stuff, and because it's like all magic gods and stuff. Some of them are really there's like the armor of the phoenix that has like flames coming off of it and stuff, and doing there's some pretty cool stuff. But you can, like any piece of armor, you can make look like any other piece of armor if you want to, just for an aesthetic, which is kind of cool. In some ways, the like weird mismatched thing that you end up with, I kind of like in some ways.
That can be fun.
That aesthetic being just like, I strive for practicality in my outfit.
Very this is peak good, like you don't have to like it, but this is peak efficiency.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
It's like you're wearing two different shoes because this shoe fits your left foot better and this shoe fits your right foot better.
I mean, I've only played a couple of hours of Final Fantasy 14 because there's a free trial that lets you go up to like level 60 or some nonsense.
Oh, cool.
After I played it, and I finally got like a different outfit or whatever, and I put it on and like, wow, this outfit is boring. The very first thing I Googled was, do I get to change my outfit to look like whatever I want later? And it told me what level I needed for like a glamour spell thing. And I'm like, awesome. I need to play till that point and then never have to care. Yeah. Which I have not done yet because I don't have infinite time. And apparently, despite the fact that I don't really play JRPGs because I don't have the time, I keep buying them. Gamer problems, right?
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the last line of this, which is in reference to the, shall we say, common history of the Final Fantasy games for being delayed. I mean, Final Fantasy VII redo, whatever they call it, remake.
Oh, okay. So
Final Fantasy VII remake got delayed several times and then got split into multiple parts. And
I think they were always going to make it multiple parts.
They redid the entire team, like they changed the team completely and did a whole bunch of stuff on it. Same with a lot of other Final Fantasy games have been delayed, but Yoshida says it will not be delayed unless a meteor falls on Japan.
Yeah, this game's supposed to come out in like June.
Maybe, yeah.
So we've got Meteor Watch going on over Japan for like the next like 4 months is what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing.
Also, as we've seen many times over the last couple of years, especially, you know what, Yoshida, if it has to be delayed so that you don't have your employees getting overworked, then maybe it's not so bad to delay it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I will say that because Final Fantasy VII got that remake, I learned that there was so much more Final Fantasy VII than I ever knew about. Not just in terms of like the length of that game, but in terms of the other Final Fantasy VII related content outside of Advent Children. I knew about that. There's
a Final Fantasy
like Crisis Core, and then like some other
Final Fantasy VII
ones.
At least I don't know what the stats are now, but Final Fantasy VII at the time certainly was by far the biggest final. Like it was a totally like next level thing from Final Fantasy VI in terms of how popular it was for Square. It was their first one on the PlayStation, and it was a whole nother level. And so they were like, well, let's just do that more.
Yeah, and then
they didn't.
They made 8, and
that
nobody likes 8 from what I understand, except for like some people who really like 8. But like a lot of people don't like 8.
8 got a lot of heat when it came. Like got a lot of people not liking it when it came out. But I feel like it has been redeemed in some ways. Like people are, in hindsight, it's not as disappointing. I think there was some disappointment because it was one of those games that was advertised solely with cutscenes when it first came when it was first being brought out.
But it has such a different art style and
so
Well,
So there was a lot of like, and it was like fully voiced cutscenes, I think, whereas the actual game was not fully voiced.
okay, that could be a little weird for people. Yeah, I can get that.
So there's some aspects of 8, but it's not as universally derided as it probably was when it came out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with the video game cycle.
Yeah.
You have to be angry about the game for at least 6 months beforehand before it's released.
Yeah.
Because it might be the worst thing ever and you don't know. And then when it comes out, it may or may not be hated. It depends on how much it changed. If it hasn't really changed, it's probably fine and everyone likes it now for at least the next 5 days. But if it's changed a lot, then we're going to be a 50-50 split of some people liking it and some people really hating it. And then you hit like a few days later and everyone retrospectively doesn't quite like it. And then you go about 3 years later and everyone loves it.
Well, then the next one comes out and everyone hates that and goes, we all liked the previous one.
There's that too. I lived through Wind Waker. I know what happens.
Also, Final Fantasy VIII brought us Triple Triad, which people really like. But that was just like a mini game card game in Final Fantasy VIII that everyone really liked.
Okay, I looked up Final Fantasy 0 something because I was playing Theatrhythm, and I noticed that a bunch of the artwork that they showed off for it had a character with like a set of cards, and I was just like, wait, did they make a Final Fantasy Yu-Gi-Oh like thing? Because they all look like they're in like school but like playing with cards or something. And I went and I looked, and I'm pretty sure there's not any card game thing going on in that. Just a character who has like a deck of cards for some reason.
That was also there's a couple. I know Final Fantasy VI had a guy who was a gambler, Setzer, who is a gambler, and so a bunch of his moves were like throwing cards and stuff. But anyway,
see, every time I look at the artwork, I'm like, man, Final Fantasy looks really cool. I should play one of those games. I definitely have a bunch of them on my shelf I haven't touched.
Final Fantasy is one of those games where it took to about Final Fantasy 7 or even like 8 or 9 before the in-game graphics caught up with the concept art for the game. Like the concept art for like Final Fantasy 2 is amazing. Doesn't quite hold up in the game. You kind of have to squint a lot. Ideally enough so that your eyes are closed. Anyway. So lots of cool stuff about Final Fantasy 16. Yeah, it's 16. It's got to be up there in terms of the franchise with the highest number. Most franchises will have rebooted themselves by now, or
we've done this before. So let's stipulate to chat, not things like just 3,000 for some reason, but literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 16.
I feel like I probably said that before, and then other people have corrected me. But anyway,
yes, this is why I'm trying to get ahead of some of that.
Yeah. But as a games journalist who has to report on them, I do appreciate that they haven't just just made the next one called Final Fantasy with no additional title.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen of it, because I haven't seen a lot, again, it's not the marketing I keep up with. It does look like it's more of like, because Final Fantasy 15 was like a guy's road trip in a car. Like they had an actual car.
It was just like a couple guys going around in a car.
And again, as far as I'm concerned, because I haven't played it, they were a boy band and they were going to gigs, which is probably not true. But this one looks a lot more like armies and war, and
it also looks more
soldiers and stuff.
It looks more fantasy.
It really makes me think of Fire Emblem.
Yeah, Final Fantasy has always kind of vacillated between like fantasy and like technology,
do some tech stuff.
And then like magical technology, and then fantasy but magic but possibly technology.
Look, if I never play 15, it can stay forever in my brain as a boy band going on a trip to gigs. When I play it, that's when that fantasy for me breaks. This is my Final Fantasy. It just doesn't exist. Probably.
Uh,
I can dream.
in other dog-related news, because that's the most important part about Final Fantasy 16, the company Pawsonify
Oh, right.
has a bunch of sweet Persona accessories for your dog, and it's amazing to me that apparently the company named Pawsonify, that wasn't what they were created. Like, they weren't a company that was founded specifically to make
Merch.
Persona merch.
Yeah. I mean,
They pre-existed doing other stuff, which is kind of interesting.
I'm a little disappointed that it looks like they only have like one leash color.
Mm.
And that they just went with the masks, because I feel like there's some other stuff you could do. Like Morgana has a yellow scarf.
Yeah, that could be cool.
That could have been in there. I mean, maybe that already exists somewhere else, so they couldn't do it.
But yeah, the oh wait, that's not the right. Stupid Nintendo Life. Figure out your link system. Here's the you can see they have all the different
Yeah, bunch of charms. I mean, based on this, if you don't have a dog, this is a way to get a key ring.
yeah, I mean they look like they're just sort of nice keychains. But yeah, they also like this company does they've got Naruto collars.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Although theoretically you want that on your dog's forehead, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, different ninjas wear the headband in different places, but a lot the standard position is around the forehead.
Okay, the little cape collar
Yeah, that's pretty good.
is pretty great.
Oh, is that Inuyasha?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Kagome. Okay. But, like, that's what I mean. Like, I would think we'd do, like, the yellow...
Yeah, you could totally
with
do
some
their
more
scarf.
Morgana,
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Looks like most of their stuff is Naruto things. And
Naruto
Inuyasha.
was popular. Is it still popular? I haven't gone to an anime convention in so long. I don't feel like I know what's popular anymore.
I do not
I know it's
know.
Boruto now.
Sorry, Naruto poop bag dispenser is just a line that I love that. And it's sold out. The Naruto poop bag dispenser is a very popular product.
Yeah. I mean, like, we are in the section of anime where everybody's doing, well, it feels like everyone's doing sequels, but I only say that because the Inuyasha has, like, I don't remember the name of that one, but basically a sequel where it's like daughters.
Mm.
I only made it 13 episodes. I forgot what that show was kind of like. I'm not that person anymore.
It's good that you know that about yourself, you know?
Instead, I watch other stuff like show we call Cool Guys, which is like 10 minutes long, and it's about a bunch of boys who constantly do things like try to put eye drops in your eyes while you're wearing glasses. Like, you know, that like sort of awkward moment of I did something kind of stupid. Yeah.
Nice.
I find it very relatable.
And then we did a story about Beyond Good and Evil 2.
The game that will never come out.
Yeah.
Although it will never be the Beyond Good and Evil 2 that people wanted.
Although, to be fair, the story is more about the issues with Ubisoft Montpellier in France, which is apparently having so many problems with employees taking stress leave and being burnt out, and then in some cases not coming back to the studio, that they were being investigated by l'Inspection du Travail, the
labor inspection.
The labor inspectors of which is a great thing to have.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Apparently it's not going so well. The fact that there's always that it's a very like cinematic or like from like either a movie or a TV show or something. But the thing of like the inspectors come and they're like, hey, where's your boss? And he's like, he's not here. And then you find out later that it's like, oh, he's not coming back. He's in Barbados or somewhere.
I mean,
but first shred all this material before the inspectors get here.
I did work at a place where we found out that we were in receivership from a customer who came in who found out from the news. Like, never was at a place where it was like, somebody comes in and it's just like, start shredding things and whatnot. But I've definitely been in the position of, you found out some real bad stuff that's going on and that you probably need a new job soon.
Also, the spin on this from Ubisoft is pretty incredible. The Montpellier developer team is undergoing a well-being assessment through a third party for preventative measures and to evaluate where additional support may be needed. A well-being assessment through a third party is a great way of saying, like, investigation by the Government Labor Bureau.
We're being investigated by the government. How should we tell people that? Well, they're technically a third party.
Yeah, like that is all true, but also is interesting way.
It is basically like.
But like that sounds like they had like hired an outside firm to come in, but it's like. It's like if you're being investigated by the IRS and it's like, yeah, we've had a third party company come in and evaluate our books just to make sure everything is okay.
Yeah, I mean, from the sounds of it though, I would say this has not been going well for them for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's without like the sexual allegations that happen at Ubisoft and other things that we've heard about over the past couple of years. Like
now, I mean, it's not good, but it's at least not bad that the allegations in this regard are stress and overwork. There so far has not been any. They're more
on par with what you kind of expect out of like industry that is full of crunch.
Yeah,
and a lot of. The video game industry could literally collapse at any moment, I think, just because everyone might fall over.
Might literally
exhaustion.
collapse.
Yeah. It's not a good thing.
I like to imagine that the labor inspectors are coming by just to see. They're like, hey, what about Beyond Good and Evil 2? We want to play that. What the hell, guys? Why aren't you working better on this? And then they come by and investigate, and they're like, oh, you guys are doing this all wrong. We're never going to get this game.
Because I'm pretty sure it was pretty recently, there was that whole thing on Twitter about that lady who worked at Twitter who was like known for sleeping on the floor of her office because she was giving it like all the sacrifice that you're supposed to give it. And I think she's laid off now. Right. And I'm just like, if you work at a place where your pride is I'm showing you a picture of me sleeping in a sleeping bag on my office floor and talking about how great it is to sacrifice myself for a company, you need like, this system is broken. System is so broken if you're proud of that. That's not good for you.
It's not good for you.
It's not good for anyone.
Yeah, it's not good for anybody. And I mean, Graham and I were actually talking about this a little bit because we both played Beyond Good and Evil kind of around the same time, which is like when it came out, or at least similar times. And we were both thought it was a great game, and we're excited about Beyond Good and Evil 2. The little random little drips and drabs of, they would release like one screen, like a screen of like one shot, and then 2 years later there'd be like, hey, here's another thing. And see, it's basically the same. It's the same thing as the like Skull and Bones, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Skull and Bones thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Beyond Good and Evil is a great game. It's not that complicated a game. It's a lot of fun. You're an investigative reporter. You run around. You investigate some stuff. You take pictures of animals. It's like, I don't think it would even be considered like a AAA game in this day and age. Like, it would probably maybe like a AA game in this day and age. It was just a lot of fun, but it wasn't like a big. All the stuff they keep showing about, this Beyond Good and Evil 2, even if it did come out, is this like completely different combination of like, Destiny and No Man's Sky.
Yeah, because it was like a big.
There's like
was it MMO?
No, it's not an MMO, but
like,
it's
universe.
there's like hundreds of planets that you can go to, and different stuff is on all these planets, and there's all this.
You're making up your own character
stuff going on,
like
and it's like
things.
that. The game, it's a very nice little game. You didn't need to make it. That's all we wanted. Like that's what we wanted for Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
Why did you have to make it so complicated?
Yeah, I was telling Graham this the other day too. I didn't play Beyond Good and Evil when it came out because that was like GameCube era for me, and I didn't have those systems. Wasn't a thing I even knew about. Heard about Beyond Good and Evil 2 because people that I listened to were talking about it, and they were talking about how it wasn't what they were hoping for. And I was like, oh, okay. And then a couple years later, I played Beyond Good and Evil because I got a copy of it, and then retroactively got angry with everybody else. Because I was like, oh no, this game's really cool. Like, I like the idea of being a journalist who's trying to like usurp people and show that evil is happening, and like also I'm just taking pictures of animals and shit.
Yeah,
that's cool. Like,
it's just
photography games are neat.
And like you're saying, like Skull and Bones. What you wanted was that you had it already. The sailing around part of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Just make that separate and do a whole, you could do like story stuff for that, but it was basically done. It was just like, do that. But no, you had to make it a whole thing, and then it gets delayed and gets changed, and the scope gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Changes.
I really don't think that game's coming out.
And then the longer you wait, the more impressive it has to be because people have been waiting so long. And now it's been 15 years, and no matter what they release, it won't be good enough.
Yeah.
And they have to, you get into the.
Plus, now they've probably been crunching on it and going through mismanagement, and they're all really stressed out. But then you can add in the stress of people just being unhappy with what you made, and maybe you're not even super happy with what you made because of the stuff that went on,
and like the thing that the Duke Nukem Forever team found out, another famously delayed game that did eventually come out, but there's a certain pace of development. If you develop a game, you don't have infinite time to develop a game. If you develop a game too slowly, the engine and the technology that you're developing it on is too old.
Right. So
then you have to go back and redo the whole thing, which is that happened on Duke Nukem Forever like 3 times. They had to keep redoing the game in a new engine because they fell behind the curve.
Yeah. So this is also why I'm like, I don't like. I can understand why you tell people that a game is being worked on, but at the same time, maybe we shouldn't know. Maybe we're not responsible enough as a collective to know about things.
Anyway, so who knows? What will happen with Beyond Good and Evil. If it ever does come out, it'll probably just be, even if it's a good game, it seems unlikely that it will have anything to do with the Beyond Good and Evil. It'll be like the Prey game that came out, which was a great game, but wasn't anything to do with the previous Prey. Although, to be fair, the previous Prey wasn't actually that good, so it's probably fine.
I mean,
that's not a good analogy, I guess. But anyway.
If they wait long enough to put it out, especially if they don't talk about it, they might be able to get people who are reviewing games to have no clue about the first game
That's
anymore,
true.
or have any clue about the marketing if they
If-
wait like really, really a
If
long
everybody
time.
has died of old age.
No, I'm just saying that the new people who are in for reviewing games are like the like an even younger crowd.
Yeah.
Therefore, they can't have any opinions about that stuff, and they'll just think about that game on its own. That's how things work.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
that could happen.
Uh,
I don't think it's coming out.
and then the Beach is the story about the Commodore 64. The Commodore 64 mod or mods or expansions, however you want to call it, for Ultima 3, which is one of those interesting things of like, yeah, these are
Yeah.
old games, but they've been kind of
There were
unearthed
old expansion packs people used to make and sell for a game.
and not in a completely unofficial way, just by actually,
Mm-hmm.
reverse engineering the original game and being like, hey, we could add this extra stuff.
And kind of making one of those points of like, we say everything's on the internet, but it's not really all on the internet.
It's true, and there's a lot of obviously archive.org and those kind of things. There's a lot of really great preservation people who have been trying to capture some of this stuff because it is important, and especially in this age of these all these online and live service games that just kind of blink out of existence. We don't, there won't be
and like point upgrades, I think, are like I've listened to
That's a
some
good
people
point.
talk about archiving games and like especially if you're not looking for like from a history perspective, but from the perspective of like letting people who are becoming devs now learn from things that have been made. Point upgrades are literally things that disappear over time and would be a great way to show somebody like how changes get made or like alters that happen and what a dev cycle can be like.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of that just kind of goes away. You can't just look at old point upgrades anymore unless you're watching streams that people have recorded, and even then that's not quite the same.
Right, unless you're looking at a game like, say, Minecraft, where the guys have been going through all the different, because Minecraft has the unusual thing that you can go through all the different versions of it, and
But,
you can see how it's been changed over the years.
Streaming and let's plays of games are in some ways becoming an archive of
It's true,
of story and like what gameplay was like and what games were like, and yet at the same time it's not quite enough in terms of what you're depending on what you're looking for to glean off of a game.
And then I was very proud of my graphic at the end of this one. I was doing the graphics on Thursday morning, and I had a little extra time, so I was like, I'm gonna make a silly exhibit of Beige in the.
I was very impressed by it because when I was going through the edit of it, I was like, oh, look at that! Paul did like the reflection off of the thing. Yeah, he put some time in it. He put like a little time into this.
Yeah.
As someone who also like photoshops a little and not necessarily well.
I also realized afterwards, but then I decided to keep it, that I had said like video game journalist circa 2023, implying that that's when
he's got the rest of this year.
Yeah,
like,
that's when they made him
10
into
months.
that he was apparently mummified, I guess.
I mean, maybe it could just be one of his forms.
It's true.
Beach has kind of had his own point releases, and that could just be one of them.
Yeah. And
His
then there's the
2023 model.
animatronic version of him beside there,
Yeah.
talking about Sonic's 30th anniversary. And then there's this special LeBron James edition PS5.
You know what? I thought the controller looked really cool because I like the graffiti kind of look of it, even though it's not really graffiti, but like words and stuff written all of it. And then I saw that, and I was like, oh, they just did it Why
Not-
didn't they do it all over?
Yeah.
The controller
be
has
honest-
like kind of like a neat feel to me because it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah. I gotta say,
And the console itself, I'm just kind of like, oh,
you
it
know,
needs like some extra stickers. I've got some Splatoon stickers. If someone wants to give me one of these, I could put Splatoon stickers all over it, and that might help.
like no shade on LeBron, but I'm not like if Sony contacted me about doing like a special edition PS5, I will want like a full applique. Like it's gonna be completely. You want to completely cover it
Yeah.
and like change it in a cool way. I mean, to be honest, a matte black PS5 is actually kind of cool. Even like without the, I don't know if you can actually like a matte black PS5 actually exists because they have like the white ears.
but like you can get. I'm pretty sure you can take those off, and they've got like plates you can get now. But they're like
Right.
pink and purple, and there was a third color that probably doesn't exist. Maybe it's blue.
Also, like I get that the crowns are kind of his thing, but I gotta say the sayings on here are extremely generic. Like they do not. I feel like those aren't like special LeBron sayings. Maybe they are, and he's just got them out of a fortune cookie or something. But
I don't know. We just had Chinese food the other night, and I gotta say, the fortune cookies fortunes have gone downhill.
what was the fortune?
They all keep saying things like, "It's best to listen to people." Like it's just standard.
It's not even like
advice
things.
things.
It's just like
not
advice.
even like oh hey, something neat might happen tomorrow. It's just like you should tell the truth, and I'm like, okay, what?
Help! I'm a prisoner in a Chinese bakery.
Oh, that would be funny. Like, you know, maybe like hey, the lotto numbers on this one are actually legit. If it was 1954, like I don't know.
Yeah.
He also keeps telling me I'm going to do something exciting at work, which, okay, if you take that in the good way, it's like, well, yes, I work at Loading Ready Run. So that just means there's like a live coming up or something for all I know. Or if you take it in a negative way, because, you know,
That's
the
like,
curse is that you live in interesting times. I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I don't want exciting things to happen at work.
You know what's exciting? Getting fired. Your
See?
your computer exploding or something. That's all exciting but bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You know, like 6 skeletons show up in the closet. When there should
What?
be 7.
oh, so
Where did the other one go?
that's the part
Where did
that's
my Sunday skeleton go, Paul?
that's the concern, right?
It could be anywhere.
Oh
It
my
might
God.
be traveling.
There are 6 skeletons in the closet. Really? Yeah. One's missing.
Basically just wrote a crap shot.
That's good. I like that.
What else do we have?
Let's talk about a couple stories that didn't make it into the episode. Here's a small update in the ongoing Microsoft Activision silliness. In this case, the Microsoft Activision Nintendo silliness, because of course there's all that thing about the Nintendo or signing a contract with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty or possibly other games. It got a little confused.
Well, I think the
But
other games
the
were
end-
for Nvidia
The end result,
specifically.
yeah,
but
the end result seemed to be just Call of Duty anyway. Bringing it to
Oh, actually, I just figured it out. When the person says they're supposed to be 7, you'd be like, are you counting the one that you're wearing right now? And then you're like, oh, right.
you always do that. You're like,
I always,
where are my
I always-
glasses?
Yeah, I always
oh, yeah.
miscount. Yeah, that's the ending to that. That's how you do that.
I like that.
Sorry. Continue.
The big thing is this that in an interview with Phil Spencer, he says that not only are they going to make Call of Duty available on Nintendo, but we expect to hit a certain level of quality in all of those games. That is our goal. Same thing on PC, the same thing on Nintendo. So when we say available everywhere or not exclusive, we want to make absolutely the best version of Call of Duty on any of these platforms. It is not about a skin or on a gun. It is about a mode of the game. The same version will be available on all platforms. If you're a Minecraft player on PlayStation, I don't think you feel like you have a lesser version. We want to make sure these players feel like they have a great experience on the platform they choose to play on. So this idea that it's not, you're not going to get like some sort of cut down, Call of Duty Lite on Switch. You're going to get real full fat Call of Duty. But of course, everyone's sort of like, but that doesn't make any sense because obviously you can't have 4K Xbox Series X Call of Duty on the Switch. That's just not going to happen.
Did they say it was the Switch or did they say Nintendo systems?
They said Nintendo.
New Nintendo phone coming out. That has to be what that means. We're getting a phone from Nintendo, right?
Yep.
Or Redacted. Redacted has 4K. What else? What else could we say? It's actually going to be on the Nintendo Online phone app, which is a real thing. I don't know how they're going to make it completely play off of that, or it'll just be a cloud version.
But
it'll be a cloud version.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, the silliness of Microsoft making promises and writing contracts for a game they don't actually own. Like, what if they get the source code for Call of Duty and they're like, oh, this will not work on the Switch. We are so sorry.
Is, who's the main protagonist for Call of Duty? It's just you as a person, right? That's not...
There have the single player versions of Call of Duty have had various. There isn't one person throughout the entire thing.
Right. It's not the same. It's not the guy that they keep putting Isabelle from Animal Crossing with, is it?
No. That's Doom.
That's Doom.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell because that guy's called Doom Guy.
That's fair. They put Johnny Doom in the Doom game, and yeah, of course. And so Call of Duty is Johnny Duty, like
probably.
His last name's.
I mean, I believe the single player things of Call of Duty actually have done kind of an interesting thing. At least the Modern Warfare ones, they did an interesting thing where like you actually jump between point of views. You sort of jump around to different people.
Okay.
But yeah, there isn't like a John Duty.
I mean, to be honest, I keep forgetting that the shorthand for Call of Duty is COD, and every time I see it, I'm just like, oh, weird war fishing game thing going on.
Yeah, Call of Duty is the most extreme fishing game you've ever played.
It could be. If they just let me
make
some changes.
If you catch enough fish, you can call it an airstrike.
Is the airstrike just like a helicopter coming down and then it's tossing all the fish down at people?
No, it's an actual airstrike.
Oh, well, that seems less interesting to me.
You get so many fish, though. The fish don't even know what's coming.
Oh, so this is an airstrike for the lake that you're fishing at. Okay. I'm back on board with that. That seems incredibly irresponsible in like
it's like dynamite fishing, but like the next level.
Yeah, in an environmental sense, but at the same time it is a video game, so it's probably fine.
You've played Worms, right? You know how airstrikes work.
I've watched other people play Worms.
The extremely accurate simulation game Worms. Remember a little while ago we talked about there's some special edition gear for your Xbox that gave it like a little hoodie for your controller.
For the controller, yeah.
Okay, this is better.
Okay.
So
all right.
The Mandalorian is coming out is out.
out.
The first
Season 3 has
yeah, the first
started
season,
out.
the first episode's out. So there's a Mandalorian special edition Xbox, which
So is it just the Xbox looking like the helmet?
no, the Xbox just has like a picture of the Mandalorian on it, which is kind of not less cool.
Mine is cooler, but fine.
And then the controller is just green, right?
Okay.
But check this out. It has a little jacket, and the sticks on the and the buttons on the controller look like his little eyes popping out, and the triggers look like his ears. It's
Okay.
amazing.
That's really good. I'll get it. And the stickers on the thing look a little bit better than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Whenever someone says, no, it's just a picture of like the character, my brain immediately goes to Halloween costumes that have a picture of the character on the costume.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
so it's always like the cheesiest looking sticker with the brightest colors. And so it always looks like the shittiest thing. I'm like, well, that looks nicer. I'll give it that.
I want the Mandalorian to have the Mandalorian written on his chest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cute.
I mean, it's like you can't like use it, so it's just
Well,
for like
not with the coat on it.
yeah. So it's like you have to display it in the coat. And I mean, as you were mentioning before, it's certainly better than the
Sonic and Knuckles.
The Sonic and Knuckles faux fur controller.
Because this is like, yes, of course you can't really play with that controller with the coat on, but you could probably take the coat off because that's, the point. And if you think about it, if you have the coat on, it looks like a cute thing, and half your controller won't get dusty when you never pick it up. But the Sonic and Knuckles ones are fun fur and will definitely be gross forever.
That fur will
Like
rapidly get less fun.
Either you touch it a lot and just human grease oils all over it, or you don't and it collects dust and it becomes gross in a different way. Like it just doesn't. Nothing good comes out of that situation over time.
Yeah, that's just it's a bad scene.
Yeah.
Have you been playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Or one of those?
Well, I had, and I put it down. I haven't picked it up. I was hoping they would fix it with the patch, but I hear the patch hasn't like super fixed everything.
Yeah.
I need to go back to it. It's not like a lack of I don't want to play it so much as other things happened and I put it down without thinking, and I haven't gone back to it yet.
Make it work good is not one of the features of the patch notes, unfortunately.
No, I think they fixed some stuff in the raids.
So yeah, what they did.
And then they fixed something wrong.
Well, so they added some new raid events. The new Paradox Pokemon, Walking Wake and Iron Leaves, which are Terra raid events.
Yeah, I'd like to get is it the walking one? The one that is basically the Susan and I never read Pokemon names out loud for a reason, so I don't know if that's right.
So the issue though is that people found out that because the way the net code works in Pokemon, you can play online without having updated your copy of Pokemon.
That seems unusual.
So if you haven't, if you challenge one of these new raids and haven't updated to 1.2.0, instead of the guy, the thing in the raid is just an egg. Wait, it goes like, I'm going to catch this guy, or I'm going to throw out my Terra Pokemon. It's just an egg.
Huh.
I don't know whether that's just like the default that, yeah, look, it's just an egg sitting there.
Like, sometimes games do weird things to be like, we want to force you to do your updates. But usually they're kind of like, you can't do any online features unless you do the newest update. I don't think usually how that works. I
don't think it's like it's intentional. It's probably like it starts as an egg and then loads in whatever Pokemon is supposed to be, but there isn't.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. Because chat has brought up Wheeler, and I know Wheeler played the online raids for a little bit on Is This Your Card? Another stream that we do. You should check out our streams over at youtube.com/loadingreadylive. But the he also has a thing for eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, like me, who is definitely trying to infiltrate and make things happen that I want to have happen, Wheeler got there. Maybe he got there, and he influenced that.
That's true.
And those eggs are for him. And it might not last forever because clearly it maybe didn't make everybody else as happy, but I assume those are for Wheeler.
What I like about that is that's a very like Pokemon glitch, right? Like that's a very like Pokemon, especially like the early like Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow, are hilariously like the way they're programmed is very weird. And because they're such popular games and they're relatively simple games from a programming and a storage mentality, they've been completely decompiled by the fan community, and they know every nook and cranny in it.
Oh, sure.
And so, and there's all this weird stuff about like how Pokemon are stored, and like how the graphics for them are stored, and how the different aspects of it, and all sorts of things that they did in order to save space and try to optimize different things. And so the kind of thing where like the idea that like it can't find it can't find that particular entry in the Pokemon database, so it replaces it with an egg, is a very like old school Pokemon kind of glitch. Like in the modern sort of 3D era, like for you would expect like a game that's made in like Unity or one of the sort of typical 3D engines, it would like crash or have some sort of other weird glitch. But having it like load in just sort of like a weird generic thing, I don't know, somehow that feels like a very Pokemon glitch.
I guess the question is then, if you catch the egg and then you do the update, does the egg turn into the Pokemon that you...
It does not.
Ah.
It basically makes it so you can't catch those two new Pokemon
Right.
without updating, which is annoying for people. But
again, that's very like what tends to happen with online aspect of a game. Usually, you can't even do an online aspect of a game unless you've updated.
The problem here is that I think it's because of the weird like the way Pokemon does the like sort of online play is very odd. Like it's sort of it's not quite like a centralized server, and it's not quite on your own computer. You like sort of jump into the other person's game.
Yeah.
So I guess if they've got the Terra raid but you don't, then you're loading it in. I
don't think have I done a Terra raid yet? I should really pick the game up again. Did you check out the Pokemon Presents at all?
I didn't know. Was there some cool stuff?
Well, the Pokemon Violet and Scarlet are getting DLC, which people expected. They're doing it in 2 parts. The first part is kind of like more festival themed, like a summer festival, like Japanese style festival kind of thing. And then the second part is some sort of foreign exchange student program where you go to an island with another school and you get some different uniform options because of that. Ooh. Which seems important to me actually, because from what I remember of the game, the only things you could trade out for your character was mostly the accessories. You had to still stay in your school uniform. Yeah,
can you now have, rather than like shorts, you can have...
I believe you can have pants now.
Pants? Ooh. What about like culottes, like halfway down?
I don't know. But
I want every possible gradation between shorts and pants.
But yeah, there's that. They're finally going to give us Pokemon Sleep this year. Remember Pokemon Sleep? We used to make the joke, Pokemon Go Home and Sleep.
Oh.
Because there's Pokemon Go, Pokemon Home, and they told us about Pokemon Sleep like forever ago.
What is that?
It's a sleep app where while you're sleeping, you catch Pokemon. Or rather, Pokemon. In this, what they've finally shown off is there's a giant sleeping Snorlax. And you have your phone on your bed, essentially, because it is like a sleep app. It is
Oh, it's like a sleep tracking
gauging
app.
your sleep. Yeah, it's the sleep tracker. And depending on how you sleep over the night, different Pokemon that match your sleep style will end up sleeping next to the Snorlax.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's weird, but I guess if it helps, if people use it and it helps them sleep, then that's cool, I guess.
Now, they want you to also have some interactivity between this and Pokemon Go, I think.
So it is Pokemon
So
Go Sleep.
they've made an accessory. So you remember the Pokemon Go Plus?
Right.
It was like the wristband
yeah.
thing that helps you like pick up Pokemon as you walk around. Well, now they have this disc called the Pokemon Go Plus Plus, and it's written out plus, and then there's a plus.
Of course.
Because and it's so you can have a disc that's on your bed for the sleep tracking, but then you can also carry it with you, like the Pokemon Go Plus thing was. There's a Pikachu inside of it, by which I mean you can push. You when you go to sleep, you're supposed to push the button to be like, I'm going to sleep now,
Right.
and then Pikachu makes some noises.
I love the idea that it's like we have this thing called Pokemon Go to encourage people to run around and walk and get outside, and we have this thing called Pokemon Sleep to encourage people to stay inside and sleep and do nothing.
Well, they did do Pokemon Smile, which is that teeth brushing app that was for free for kids.
Oh, okay.
I want to say last year. So if you think of like the idea that there's Pokemon kind of like the main games,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like Pokemon spin-off games, and then I would actually contextualize these maybe as Pokemon lifestyle apps and games, because there is like in Japan at least, when they sell products, there are lines of Pokemon products that are much more for like, here's some stuff for your kitchen that actually looks like stuff you'd have in your kitchen as an adult.
Right.
And
Right.
then there's stuff that's more geared towards kids. And I feel like that's just kind of what we have going on here is like, yeah, we've got Pokemon Go because people want to go out and walk and stuff, and it's a fitness tracker. And yeah, we have like a thing for helping kids learn how to brush their teeth better. And now we have like a sleep tracking app because we're all old now. We can't sleep at night for some reason. Don't know why. The world's just been on fire lately. But now you can catch Pokemon in your sleep. The tagline or the thing that they market for it is the idea of like something to look forward to when you wake up.
Right.
Which I kind of think is cute.
What about like I don't know, Gengar or Ghastly, like the like are there Pokemon that only come when you sleep?
I mean,
Like
maybe.
that, and so you like wake up and there's a Pokemon like right there. It's like, oh.
I mean, the commercial for it's really cute because it's like a bunch of people sleeping in bed. And then there's because it's an animated thing for commercial sake of like a Pokemon beside them.
Drowsy canonically eats dreams.
And
wow.
you know those like pictures you see of people where it's like this person's sleeping but their dog is like taking up the whole bed. And it's like that throughout the commercial but with different Pokemon and stuff,
right.
which is kind of fun.
The commercial shows wake up and Mr. Mime is standing at the foot of the bed, just staring at you.
Yeah, there's also like a very intense commercial of like these people walking in with like a briefcase looking thing, and then they put out what is a very fancy looking playmat essentially, but like as like a case, like a briefcase thing that opens up, and then they played Pokemon the card game very intensely, and so they're doing some sort of thing called Pokemon Classic, which
Right, they're bringing out like some of they're reprinting
like
a bunch of the
original
early
decks
Pokemon
and
games.
stuff.
Yeah.
And all I could do was like, I don't play this game, but that board looks cool. Can I walk around? I want real life of just walking around being like, we all have our Pokemon card briefcases and we're like, eyes meet, fighting time. I know.
I mean, that I feel
Seems like
like
a fun world to live in.
isn't that literally like the Yu-Gi-Oh world? Don't people just like fight each other with cards all the time in that world?
Yes, and there
in-
is a Pokemon trading card video game that I'm assuming works the same way, because Pokemon does that where it's like two trainers meet eyes and now they must fight.
Right.
So,
Or in the case of the Pokemon video game, you just walk by a trainer and he's like, ah! I must fight you.
yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be expensive because they called it a premium product. And honestly, it's not something I should buy because it's not something I use. But I like fancy boxes, so it's me going like,
fancy
wow,
boxes
that
are
box
nice.
looks fancy and cool.
Uh,
What else we got going on?
New things, people being added in Fortnite. Yay!
Fortnite still has people being added to it? Not
Yeah.
everybody's in Fortnite yet?
Yep. They've
Who-
found the only person in the world who is not in Fortnite, and they put them in. No.
Oh, who is that?
So this is Adonis Creed, from the
I just assumed it was going to be like some sort of Assassin's Creed character. It's like, I don't know
not
who this
not
is.
from Assassin's Creed. This is from the Rocky spin-off movie series, Creed.
Oh, okay.
Which there are two Creed movies, and the third one's coming out.
Which is why there's
next
two
month.
Creed characters, right? There's the red corner, the blue corner.
Yeah. What I find hilarious about this is that there's, so they've got, it's like Rocky. It's a boxing movie. It's like a pretty down to earth boxing movie. And they have a skin of the boxer guy, which is pretty cool. But then they also, because it's Fortnite, they have like boxing guy with Iron Man armor.
Oh, yeah.
Which I am pretty sure is not how he is in the movie.
What was that boxing movie that was like the people are boxers, but the boxing they're doing is controlling robots that are actually doing the boxing?
Oh yeah.
They should put that in Fortnite.
Real Steel.
I'd love to see them try to put, you have a character who does whatever, but you have a completely different character that's doing all the fighting.
So I just thought this was funny because now I feel like this is like completely antithetical to the movie. It's like just it's like no actual, like people who made this have not actually like seen the movie. He's not a Marvel character. He's not Jax from Mortal Kombat who's got
Right.
robot arms. He's just a guy. He's like a boxer from the mean streets of Detroit or
I
wherever.
don't know if the people who work on the character designs for Fortnite would have the time to watch all of the franchises for all the things they put in Fortnite.
It's true. They've
It
got
just seems like a lot.
They have any time that they have free, they're just designing new characters to put into Fortnite.
Yeah, and all of them have to have like
They've
Marvel
gotta have, like,
Cinematic Universe burnout at this point, right?
And there's also like a spray.
And I assume because of the Dragon Ball stuff, they've definitely watched all of the Dragon Ball stuff. Like it's just a lot.
It's true.
It's just a lot to do.
Speaking of expansions, Elden Ring is getting an expansion.
Wait, really? It's finally getting its DLC
Yep.
that everyone talked about as if it was definitely going to get DLC. We know it's getting DLC now.
It's called Shadow of the Erd Tree, which I'm assuming is a thing in the game. I have not
I
played
believe there are trees in the game.
the Shadow of Erd Tree.
What are details?
It's a new adventure in the lands between.
Ooh.
Uh,
Oh, so it's a story expansion thing. Good job.
We have
It's the kind of stuff I like to see as expansions in video games, even if I don't play that.
we have just this one image.
Okay. Well, that looks like standard Elden Ring to me, so it's a good start.
It's true. The Erd tree. Well, I guess that's the whole.
Like, isn't
'Cause-
that really tall tree that somebody measured?
It's the tall tree that's glowing gold. So one,
I just want to ask if there's like another tall tree that I would actually get confused by. Are there more than one tall tree?
in Elden Ring,
Is there? I don't know.
like it's a ginormous tree that's like all glowing with gold.
Okay.
Which notably, a glowing tree would not have much of a shadow
I guess if
if it is actually emitting light.
if it is its own light source, then yes, it would have trouble making a shadow hit the ground.
Also, you'll notice that the tree in this picture is not glowing, which I'm assuming is a bad thing.
I mean, I guess in that sense, the shadow isn't so much necessarily it projecting a shadow, but like maybe more of the metaphor of its light has gone out. Somebody has stolen all the gold off the tree. Maybe the tree was gold plated.
Oh yeah, maybe just like
Somebody
gold.
just took its
Maybe it was
bark
just
off.
gold leaf. Anyway,
I wish I'd gotten there sooner.
coming from it's coming out in December. No, this is December is when they talked about other stuff. I don't think they've actually said. They just said it's currently in development.
I mean, that's fine. That's. I imagine that sticking some story stuff into a really large open world game is
Probably a big deal.
lot of work.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I imagine if they had planned that from the beginning, there's probably places for them to put those hooks in, because that's the easier way to program, from my understanding, is if you know from the beginning where to leave stuff to do things.
And I mean, taking stuff out, as we know from that dev room and sports story,
It's
is
impossible.
very difficult.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful.
Always leave yourself room for more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like eating, really. It's like leave yourself some room for dessert, because taking stuff out after is going to be awful.
I mean, there was a thing because their first or I don't know if it was the first, but they did bring out an update a month or two ago or a couple months ago, where there was this big like arena in Elden Ring that you couldn't get into.
Yeah,
that
people
was, like,
were like trying to
closed.
glitch into it,
And
stuff.
people had like glitched into it, and it was just like a thing. But like then they did an update to actually like open it up, and you can go into and fight guys. It's like a PvP area.
Okay, I mean that makes sense.
So
Maybe
there's stuff like that. Like
Lionel just hanging out at the bottom of it.
I've definitely played games like that where you like are playing. You're like in the game, and there's like a thing that's like obviously been blocked off, and it's like, oh, I wonder what's through there, and it's like, we haven't made that bit yet, but there will be something in there.
I mean, sometimes that stuff's also gated by like story events and things, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily always a DLC thing,
Right,
but
yeah.
I mean, it is simpler to be like, we have a giant thing there. Don't worry about it. We just didn't need that place to be a black hole.
I think I mentioned it before, but in Darksiders, which is a game I quite like, there's some DLC of these like special hunts that you have to do, where you like there's all these special, very scary, big mythical versions of monsters that are paid DLC to get them. So you it's like a $5 or $10 DLC to unlock this like extra content. But they're there in the game, but they're like almost transparent. They're like just this like
Ghosts.
They're this like translucent kind of wireframe.
Oh, they're digital ghosts.
Well, not wireframe, but like you can just sort of see little parts of little like sort of points. Like I guess it's more like a point cloud that just kind of sparkles.
Okay.
And there's nothing that indicates that that's a DLC thing. So I spent like so long, like they like they're incorporeal, like they just like when you don't have the DLC. And so there's this one area where there's like this giant monster thing, like doo, 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 and I could hear it, and I could see this like weird little like these kind of points of light moving around, and I'm like, what the hell is that thing? I spent so long messing with it until I finally looked it up, and I was like, oh. It's a piece of content that I don't have yet.
Yeah, I don't know that I like
it's like,
that.
why is it there?
Like,
just make it disappear.
I mean, I don't mind a game telling me that there's, like, explicitly telling me that there's DLC I could get. But I don't know that I like the idea of, like, monster ghosts are roaming around to I don't know, it just makes the world feel a little weird.
Yeah. Anyway. And then the other bit of thing. Right, there's this extra bit of Final Fantasy news about the that apparently Clive is better than Dante from Devil May Cry.
Okay.
At least according to the guy who was the developer on on Devil May Cry.
It's like, did they do a poll? Like,
no. This is guy was a guy working on Final Fantasy 16. Was previously he was a former Capcom developer with 20 years of experience designing action games like Marvel vs. Capcom, Devil May Cry 4, and Devil May Cry 5. And so people asked him, I mean, kind of tongue in cheek.
Oh, it's like,
but who would win in a fight?
Yeah.
Dante or Clive? I mean, this was on a press junket for Final Fantasy 16, so.
Yeah, I mean,
he's going to say Clive.
That's the thing, right? Whenever you say something like, well, who would win in a fight, this character or this character, and it's like, well, whoever the author
who's writing the story,
who's writing the story, and what publication is it for, and
yeah. Dante is toast. Anyway.
I mean, he could be. He seems like a toast kind of guy.
It's true.
I bet he eats toast and, like, marmalade in the morning for breakfast.
But like he spreads it with his ginormous sword.
Well, yeah. You got to use it constantly. It's the only thing they're going to give you.
Yeah.
Which means he gets a really big piece of bread. And a really large jar of marmalade.
You need a really big thing to fit the sword in.
People asked, wouldn't it just be easier to get like a butter knife? And well, you know, that's just not the way we do things.
All right. I think that is all of the news that I want to talk about.
Well, if we missed anything really important, we can do it next week.
That's true. And I was just trying to think about the comments of the for the checkpoint on YouTube, but I don't think there was too much other stuff or anything that people mentioned.
There was people who talked about Nier Automata because of that, but we covered that. There were a couple people who said we shouldn't call any of ourselves old. I suspect they may be older than us, but they did not confirm that. And I can kind of get that. I've got a couple of friends who are much younger than me who have constantly.
They call themselves old, and you're like, but you're indirectly insulting me when you do that.
No,
well,
it's just weird to watch somebody panic about turning like 26. You know, but I don't recall anything else particularly.
Oh yeah, actually, there was a fair amount as people, complaining about being called old, but also people the competition over who grew up with an older computer system. So like Commodore 64.
Yeah. There was that.
Oh, so you're one of those Johnny-come-lately guys. Because I was big into the whatever Tandy or, some other older computer system. Because when I was a boy, when I was a child, we just had a plain circuit board that we had to, and we soldered stuff to it. That was the fun. We made Pong.
When I was a child, I also had really weird pieces of like cardboard and things to play with. Like, yeah, they didn't let me. I tried to fix the TV once, and my parents got scared that I would do things. So I was very young. The TV stopped working, and it had tubes in it, and then the tubes exploded. And it was probably a good reason to be concerned about me messing around with that stuff.
That's fair.
I'm just trying to figure out if ChillPoint is still happening next week.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. There may be.
It might not be.
Yeah.
But I can't find any confirmation of that in our own work Slack.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for supporting us, whether it is here on Twitch or on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. If you haven't seen the episode of ChillPoint that went up this week, you should do that. It will probably be somewhere near this video if you're watching this on YouTube. If YouTube's algorithm is working properly, it might be in the sidebar. Like
you
over
could
here.
also just consider subscribing to youtube.com/LRRBG.
And then yeah,
if you
subscribe
want.
And dingle the bingle and hit the bell. And that way you'll be notified when it comes out.
Yeah, or you could go to our Discord at discord.gg/LRR because there's a whole like lure content forum section where new videos hit most of the channels that forum post automatically goes up. And I know not a number of people are using that as a notification system. Also, it's a fun place to hang out.
Yeah.
They just added a rhythm channel. So I've been over there.
So
did we mention the Patreon?
Maybe I didn't. If I didn't, patreon.com/loadingreadyrun is also a thing that you should check out and support us. You can support us through there as well.
Cool.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will talk to all y'all later. Bye.
Bye.